All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining the first session here of our weekly webinar series. My name is Sandeep Sidhu from the SAP Business ByDesign team here at Phoenix Business Consulting. I'll be kicking off our webinar with a few housekeeping items, and then we'll pass it off to our consultants for our session today, which will be focused on invoice and expense automation with SAP Business ByDesign and Concur. Now, first off, our team on the call. We've got David Snyder, our practice director, 15 plus years executive leadership in the SAP ecosystem. We've got Livio, our sales director with 15 plus years experience as well. Our consultants on the call, David Szymanski for the SAP Concur practice and Asif Raj with the SAP Business ByDesign practice, who will be speaking about the integration itself as well. And myself, manager project delivery here with the ByDesign team, and I'll be moderating our webinars moving forward as well. So any information that you may need, any requests or questions about the webinar or any other items as well, we'd be happy to assist, and you can feel free to reach out to any of us at any time. Now, who is Phoenix Business Consulting? We are a consulting firm with 25 plus years experience, 100% SAP, with 4 main offices and consultants across the USA and worldwide. And we've helped develop multiple SAP best practices. And so we've got offices all around the world as well. And we are an all SAP company. So here are some of the products that we work with, ByDesign, Concur, as we discussed, but also products such as SAP S/4HANA, Ariba, SAP Signavio, and Analytics Cloud as well as SuccessFactors. Today's webinar topics, we're going to talk about the expense integration and invoice integration between SAP Business ByDesign and SAP Concur. And David and Asif will be helping us all understand that integration in depth here today. A couple of housekeeping items before we start. There's no need to take any notes today. We will be able to provide a link of today's presentation afterwards, as well as a copy of this PowerPoint. If you have any questions, you can feel free to put them in the chat in the QA section, and we'll answer questions at the end of the webinar. If you do feel that you have a question pertaining to the topic being discussed, you can raise your hand at any time, and I'll try to we'll try to get your question involved as we go. If we don't get to all the questions, we're happy to continue the discussion after the call as well. So feel free to stay on with us. And you'll receive a link to register for our future webinars as well. This is something that we'd like to do every single week with new topics and different consultants leading the topics as well. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to David to get us started with the SAP Concur overview.
Okay, let me go ahead and share out my screen. And hopefully everyone can see my screen. So as we were talking about Concur, Concur it's really an automated expense reporting system of record system. It's going to ensure and automates the process of all your expense reporting. This is including invoicing, reducing all the time and effort required versus you doing any type of manual data entry. It's improving the compliance, all the various audit checks and audit controls that we have in place. Real-time visibility. This is really the businesses gain real-time visibility into the spending. So it's really allowing you to make better business decisions in your financial planning as you go through. So managers, you guys can easily track all the expenses. You can identify trends, monitor different budget adherences. The beauty of Concur and the integration, it does allow SAP Concur integrates with various types of financial systems, such as Business ByDesign. payroll software. So it's going to really ensure, the data is sharing across all the different platforms. Concur, bread and butter is really the travel and expense with Invoice integrated. And then we have many, many different extended type of services, such as travel requests, company build statements, TripIt, various different types of extended services that we offer. So before any of the integration comes into play, minimize that a little bit. How this all comes into play is in the App Center. So in order to get this integration in Concur, and always remember, Concur is the interface, and it's role driven. So, expense, invoice, company build statements, travel request, purchase request, all the various different things that we have in Concur is you're using or identifying one user interface, but the role that's given to you gives you all these various different types of functionality. So coming into this home section that you see here, down below here, what you see here are the applications, the functionality that you can do. Things on the right-hand side is truly the configuration. So before we do any type of integration, we need to sync it up with the App Center. So clicking inside this App Center will give you all the different various apps that are linked to Concur. And as you can see, there's many, many different types of apps. Phoenix has our own proprietary funds and grants integration and financial integration. So coming up to the top, if I type in Phoenix and just click search, it's going to show the results of the Phoenix expense. And this is all the report that automates, and it's transferring the vendor of all the different expense reports into your financial posting. And this is all going to be integrated with SAP ByDesign. In addition, it also has the same thing with Invoice. So this app, once it gets linked to the integration, it's going to automate all the invoice, transfers the vendor invoice information created into SAP, going back into Business ByDesign. So this is the linkage that has your financial posting. It's in the App Center. As it relates to the configuration, down here in the expense, we need to identify, or Concur needs to identify how this takes place. And that's given by the group configuration. So this is all behind the scenes things, but it's good for you to understand how this integrates and how it gets configured. In any of the particular groups, clicking inside one of the groups, we need to tell the system enable the financial integration. If you are doing hosting for your payroll integration or employee replication, this is the apps that we use, and this is going to use all the APIs to go ahead and allow for the integration. So number one is the app needs to be linked and integrated. Number two, it needs to be configured with inside of the group configuration. And as it relates to Invoice, the processing of those invoices, that financial integration is activated actually in the workflow. So as it relates to, I'm going to bring this over here. I want to show you the process. So I think we're all very familiar at this point in time with all the strong people with Concur of the idea of the creation, the submission, the approval, and the processing. So I'm going to take you down that path again of making some very, very simple type of expenditures. But I want to show you, or we want to show you, the approval process and how that integrates into Business ByDesign. So as a user, and by the way, what you see here is going to be effective on January the 1st. This is the new look and feel for Concur. And if you ever decide, while you're maybe don't like this right now, you can always switch back. Switching back to here will give you the classic look that you're currently used to looking at right in here. So this is just on the radar screen with travel release notes. So this is effective now. This is how it looks. But going January the 1st, enabling that is going to give you the new look and feel of Concur. So what we need to do is we're going to talk about expense first, then we'll talk about invoice in a moment. But color-coded schemes. Red means, a report was created, submitted it, and maybe went to the approver, and for whatever reason, it got rejected. So it comes back to the end user as a returned expense report. Blue means it's not submitted. You started the expense report, but you know what? For whatever reason, maybe you decided you took a lunch break or you stepped away for a while, and then it's in this non-submittal stage. And then green means it's either submitted, it's in this status called approved and an accounting review, or it could be processing payment. And that's our ultimate goal, is with the integration. So creating a report, we're going to click create new report, and I'm going to fill out the blanks. Some clients out there, some customers, it's a one-to-one relationship. In other words, one policy is driven by that particular group. However, you can open this up to a company build statement policy or the Canadian policy. So this is very configurable. Concur is very configurable based on your business requirements. So I'm going to stick with this particular policy, and then I'm going to fill in some of the requirements. If the question was asked if this is billable, non-billable, I'm going to put in here the report name. So my report name is going to be called FI Financial Integration Posting. And I'll put in today's date. The report automatically will default to today's date. However, you can put anything in the past. You cannot put any future date because you can't do an expense report for tomorrow. You can only do an expense report that actually took place. And then this is your financial information that copies from your employee profile. This is a logical systems, company code, cost object type, cost object code, making modifications if you so desire, or this could be locked down as a read-only value, or it can be completely hidden. I'm going to select, in this case, no project. We're not billing this to any customer. We're not selecting any projects, and we're not going to do anything relatable to travel allowance, which is per diem. So filling out this expense report, we're going to click on create new. And I'm only going to do 3 expense types just so we can show you the process. And I know a lot of Concur folks or employees out there who use Concur is probably very, very familiar with this process. So I want to add a new expense to my report, and I'm going to select airfare. These are the most recently used. So Concur is very smart, it's very intuitive. It kind of helps you. If I've used these expense types before in the past, it's just a time saver. But in this case, I'll select airfare, and I'm going to fill in the blanks. Transaction date, I'll put today. Business purpose. Vendor, I can come over here and just start typing in the word, Delta for Delta Airlines, or I can select from a drop-down search. Ticket number, airline travel service code, and your credit card payment will all come through a feed, your credit card feed. So you will not really be putting this information in. This is just for a demonstration, and we're going to assume it's cash out of pocket. So we will put in the city of purchase and how much that costs. So let's say that airline ticket was $300. I'm going to click save. And essentially I am building upon my expense report. I'm going to do 2 more just to keep the flow of this. We're going to say car rental. So again, these are the most recently used up in here, or I can come down here, find my car rental. Fill in the blanks as well. And you notice this travel to conference, that information copied down from my last expense line. So it's smart enough to know if I needed to make that change, I could, but it's utilizing the same, business purpose. In this case, I'll select a drop down. Let's say it was, budget, rent a car, and the amount of that expenditure, $200. I can save my expense. I'll add one more. And I'm sure a lot of folks have seen this before. If you haven't seen it for the first time, utilizing personal car mileage is utilizing Google Maps. So we need to put in the transaction date, the purpose of trip, travel to the conference, that copied down again. And instead of putting the location of where you're leaving from and where you're going to and estimating what the distance is, utilize automation of the mileage calculator. And this essentially is waypoints. Where are you leaving from? So if I was at the LaGuardia airport, I just typed in LGA. I can type in the name LaGuardia. The system is going to identify what I'm identifying here. And let's say I traveled from LaGuardia and I went to Empire State Building. Even though I spelt the name wrong, the system knows or is assuming what I'm putting in. And my distance is 8.4 miles. It's taking me from point A and it's taking me to point B. And I wanted to go ahead and add my mileage to the expense. So it tells me the distance, it tells me the amount, and it tells me based on 67 cents per mile. I can override this, if you got rerouted or there was construction or there's something that deviated you from really going 8 miles, you can go ahead and adjust this mileage based on whatever the need is and save your expense. And then there could be an audit rule that would trigger and it would say, why did you do this? And you can justify it by clicking in here and it will say, you have modified the default mileage calculation above the preferred range, and then you can justify the reason why you did that. So this is very, very standard stuff within travel and expense with Concur. I'm sure a lot of folks have done this before multiple times. Showing you the allocations. So if I click this button here, if I wanted to allocate all this to different cost objects, or if I wanted to do it individually, maybe I just want the car rental to be allocated to your cost objects. So it's very, very flexible. It's very, very repeatable. And I can come over to my allocation button and I can click allocate. In other words, I'm cross-charging this, or I'm distributing my cost objects. So clicking into allocation will allow me or give me the ability, say, to click add, and then I can make my adjustments. So what logical system am I going to use? Development. What is my company code? What is my cost object type? Cost center. And then, what is my cost object code? Marketing. And then if it happened to be billable or a project. So I'm adding all the different criteria and I'm allocating now, cross-charging this entire expenditure with those expenses. And now I get my GL string. It all concatenates it all together. So here's my logical systems, company code, cost object type, cost object code, if it was billable, yes or no, and if there were any identifiable projects. So I'm satisfied with this. I'm going to go ahead and click save. And then the last thing I want to do is before I actually submit this is if I go into the report details and I want to identify what we call the report timeline. Where is this going to? Who is my manager? So when I submit this, it's going to route to this person is my manager. So I'm going to go ahead and click close. And I'm going to submit my expense report. I get a user electronic agreement. I am agreeing to and attesting that to the best of my ability, this is accurate. and I want to accept it and continue. So now, once I submit my report, that now becomes a system of record. It has an audit trail attached to it. And here it is. It's in green, it's submitted. It's pending approval from this person, Paige Turner. So now what I want to do, I want to sign out. And I want to sign in as Paige Turner. Give me one moment. I want to get the credentials for that person. So give me 1 second. And then I have to use my FM or my MFA to go ahead and authenticate that. So let me just go ahead and copy. I'm going to put my username in here. Okay, my username, my password. And then lastly, I want to go ahead and put my MFA. It just changed on me. Sorry about that. You will put this in here. Okay, so now I should be able to sign in as my approver. So the approver gets an email notification. They're going to go ahead and they're going to go to required approvals. Here is my expense report. I'm going to flush this through. I'm going to go ahead and select approve. And now this is going to go to what we call the expense processor, which typically sometimes is the last stage of your workflow, but not always necessarily always the last stage. So I'm going to bring this screen over, as you can see here. And now I am truly logged in as a processor. So I'm going to come over here to my administration. I am going to go to expense. And the functionality that I want to do is to process my reports. So clicking down to process reports. So we're getting very close to Asif to be taken over to show you the financial posting. So you notice that this report gives me the name. It tells me the first name, the last name. It's in this status called approved and accounting review. So the processor can do a few things here. One is validate, confirm everything is in accordance. I can send this back to the employee. If I chose to do that, I can build reason categories and codes. Why am I sending this back? So these are very configurable. So you can say, this is the reason why the processor is rejecting this report. Or they can send it to another approver. In my situation, for financial posting, I'm going to go ahead and select this and I'm going to approve it. And that's the kickoff right there. So now it integrates with the Phoenix proprietary integration. So at this stage, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And then I'm going to pass the torch over to Asif, and he can show you how that integration piece is going to work within Concur.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Okay, perfect. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can you guys hear me okay?
Oh, yeah, you can hear fine.
Perfect. Okay, so this is an ERP system, SAP Business by Design. And what I've done is we have built an add-on solution that works exclusively with Concur, and it uses the FI APIs from Concur to do a two-way communication for expenses and invoices posted in Concur. Okay, so the whole idea is that you would do the expense and invoice entries and probably payments as well in Concur, but all of this needs to get applied to the financial systems in the background, which in this case is SAP Business by Design, and everything's gonna get downloaded and go to the right GLs, and the payment and bank statement entries should get posted into the ERP system so that your financial data, your GL books are all up to date and accurate. Okay, so what we have is I'm going to go through this add-on solution. This is basically, where's my Concur? That's my Concur add-on solution. This is a custom work center that's part of this add-on solution, and there's all the various work center views where you can play around with the data. So I'm gonna go straight up to configuration. And before we do anything, I think the first step that David showed is he went to the App Center and connect the apps built by Phoenix to your SAP Business by Design application. What this will do is this will use the FI APIs, and this will use the user IDs and authorization tokens to establish an OAuth 2 based communication pattern for the web services. So I'm going to go, I already have connected the system. So this is the configuration screen. And I'm going to come in here. So a couple of options. This is a Concur application type. We are connecting to Concur Expense. And the target in SAP ByDesign is going to be a supplier invoice. So what this means is you create an expense in Concur, it's going to get created as a supplier invoice in SAP ByDesign, and then you can process that invoice and make a payment to it. Now, for example, we have, let's say you don't want to make it an invoice, you want to again process that as an expense report, or you want to skip the supplier invoice option as well and directly create an employee or supplier payable that could be paid out. So you have those options available here as well. I think for this demo, we're going to go with supplier invoices. Okay, so your entire process would be your employees would log in to Concur, create a Concur expense, go through the entire approval process, and post the expense. Once the expense is fully approved and in pending payment, that will get downloaded over to ERP system, and the ERP system would then go ahead and process the payment and apply that payment to your bank statements. Now, a couple of things we can do. Let's say you want to, the employees are making payments via a corporate credit card. Okay, so in that case, you don't really want to pay the employee directly. You're actually going to pay the bank that has issued that particular corporate credit card to your employees. Okay, because the money is being spent by the employees, but it is actually coming into an account for your organization. The employee is not making a direct payment to this credit card. Okay, in that case, we can create, let me show that as well. We can come over here and define a vendor mapping screen, okay, where you can specify the supplier ID in Concur and map it to a particular supplier ID in ByDesign. Okay, we just have the codes here, but once we get into the detail, we'll be able to see the supplier mappings as well that you go to the bank or your credit card payment provider. Okay, sorry. Didn't want to sidetrack. Back to this configuration. These are the codes that you need from Concur. These are the technical one-time setup that connects your Concur application to the SAP ERP application. These are the codes for the clients, and this is the user ID and password that we will receive from Concur. Technically, it would create as a refresh token that we will use to get the access token over and over again. And the access token will be used to communicate via the web services. Okay. We also have a company mapping table here. So when you install Concur, okay, SAP will generate company IDs for you, and those company IDs will be used throughout the system. Okay. Now, in case that company ID is different from your company IDs in SAP and the ERP system in ByDesign, you can make use of this mapping table to define the mapping, and all invoices belonging to this company will be posted to company 1000 in ByDesign. Okay, so these are the little mapping table that you can use for data transformation. Okay, this is a one-time setup that needs to be done during the beginning, and then we can forget about it. You'll never have to look at it again. Okay, so once my configuration is done, let me show this as well. So I have created one more mapping table for the employee mapping table. It is possible that you have implemented Concur before or after your ERP implementation. If they have gone together, then the employee IDs could be different. Okay, so you could choose a particular employee ID. You could maintain this particular mapping UI where you map the employee ID to ByDesign employee ID. Okay, exactly same things for the GL mapping tables as well. These are for the expense types as well. Sorry, not the GL mapping table. These are the expense types in Concur, and you can define where this should get posted in SAP Business ByDesign. Okay, so I have a list of that I received from David earlier this week, and making sure that these are each in your expense report, each line item would have an expense type. Everything gets mapped to a specific GL account so that your accountants are happy and your financial data gets posted into the right GL. Okay, so this is a little bit of setup that we need to do before we get actually download the data. Once this is all done, I'm going to go to Concur Expense Reports and start a new report extraction process. Okay, now this is really simple. Everything is set up for you. All you need to do is click. I mean, you don't even need to do this. This is all going to be set up in the background and will be executed on a daily basis. You could set it up, say, download the reports that were approved on a previous day and 2 a.m. Every day. Okay, so in this case, the system will automatically create a new instance of the run and execute this process. And this process will download the open reports and parse them, apply the transformations for the employee mapping, vendor mapping, and expense report mapping, and post it into the system. Okay, so this is the report, FI posting 11/22. This is the one, right, David?
Yeah, that is correct. Yep.
$113.40. Okay, good. So we have the invoice we have the expense report brought over. Okay, now once the report comes over, it will parse the system. It will check for all the data that we need is there or not, and give us a consistency status. Okay, now it tells me that the status is inconsistent. Okay, so let's find out what's happening there. When this happens, we go to the message log. Okay, and the message log, it tells me that invalid item expense type. So that means there is a new expense type that was introduced probably for which we don't have a mapping yet. Okay, no worries. So what we can see, let's come back to the data here, and we can see that we have a new expense type for mileage. Okay, I'm able to see the GL accounts for map for both of these, and I don't have a GL account for this. That means this is the line that's the problem. Also, you can also check from here. You can see this particular line item number 89 CD 54772E. That's how the Concur gives us the data. So if I come back here, that's my corresponding report item ID. That's the problem. Okay. So I'm going to click on save, and I'm going to quickly create an entry for this particular mapping table, for this particular entry in the expense types mapping table. Okay, I'm going to create my ID is mileage. My account usage is supplier invoice, and this is for, do I have a GL account for mileage? If not, I'll just put it to travel expenses general. Okay, so I created a new expense type, and let's go back and work on this report again. So this was the report. After I've added a new expense type, I'm going to perform the check consistency option again. And now you can see that I have found a mileage for A7100, and a consistency status is set to consistent. Okay, that means all of the data is consistent. I'm just going to go ahead and create. This is still the staging area what we were looking at. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and post this into the system by creating a supplier invoice. Okay, this is still a manual process that I'm showing to you, but when we go live or into the when we go into the live systems, all of this will actually happen automatically. And at the end of the day, all you need to do is just come over to this particular screen and make sure everything is consistent and everything has an invoice generated. Okay, this is in a proper live environment. This is only for monitoring. Okay, so I have a supplier invoice generated number 75. I'm gonna open that invoice, and just to show that everything is okay, posted. Okay, this is the FI posting 22. This is an actual, this is not a staging area now. Okay, now we are into an actual invoice document. This gets posted. I have traveled to conference and I have my amounts set up. My total amount is correct, 513.40 cents. Okay, so all good. Okay, and in between, what would happen is, if I go back to the message log, okay, this once as soon as I receive an invoice and I post an invoice, it is going to send that message back to Concur stating that the document is acknowledged successfully and document is confirmed successfully. Okay, so this is posted, and the Concur also knows that the ERP system has received it, so it will take it out of the queue, and I think it will put the status to extracted or payment process completed. Okay, thank you so much, guys. David, over to you for the Concur.
Okay. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, let me go ahead and share out my screen again. So as Asaf had mentioned, all that information, that's a lot of pre-planning, that's a lot of things that are taking place. The timeliness of this now bridges back into Concur. So where this comes back to is your applications. So we're going to go back to the expense tab. And now we need to process this. So we push this through, we flushed that through from the submission, the approval, the processor, it approved it. And then it went into the financial integration for that posting. So as it relates back to Concur, so they're talking to each other, data's going out, data's coming back in. These are all, approved and accounting review. You can see the payment status says not paid. I'm going to go ahead and look for that. I'm going to do a query and I'm looking for that particular person. So I'm going to filter this. I'm looking for the last name. I'm going to click go. And now you see the FI posting. It is approved. It is approved here. Now, as Asaf had just meant, it's set for payment. So clicking inside here, so you can see how fast the integration is within Concur, that sent for payment. That's truly the end-to-end process of the creation, the submission, the approval, the processing, working with Business by Design for the FI posting. And as you can see, when it comes back into Concur, now it's a system of record. So that kind of takes you through the entire flow. The invoice integration is identically the exact same way. We're going to go through the OCR technology. We're going to scan invoices or upload batches for that. And it's going to go through that same process. It's going to go through assigning that invoice over to an invoice owner. They're going to go ahead and match the invoice, submit that, and it's going to go through the same identical process for a process invoice person. So I do believe the chat may have been disabled. I'm not sure. I don't see anything in the chat. Sandeep, do you see any questions in the chat that we can help with?
If there isn't anything further in the presentation, I think we could definitely open up the floor now to any questions for any of our attendees if you want to type in your questions in the QA. Otherwise, I did have a few questions myself.
Yes.
And wanted to save those to the end as well. So we'll let some of those questions trickle in into the Q&A. I think there's one here from an anonymous attendee. So question is, I don't use Concur. What is the difference of using this over the SAP ByDesign Travel and Expenses Work Center?
Asaf, that may be a question that you can answer for ByDesign.
Sure. I think when you use Concur, or when you use SAP ByDesign Travel and Expenses Work Center, you are working completely within the boundary of SAP ERP system. However, if you want a further advanced functionality for Concur, where you can connect to other travel service providers, you can connect to your flights, you can directly book your flights, you can have a further detailed process on the expense management. That is when you want to use Concur. It's two different products. They both give you the process to use expense and expense management and invoice management. However, Concur is far more detailed and far more focused on the overall travel and expenses functionality.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. Just one more statement, then I'll pass it over to you. It might also come down to the organization's overall strategy, where you want to have a much higher number of users who want to use travel and expense. So purchasing an SAP ByDesign ERP license may not be a favorable strategy, where you want the bulk of your team to just do travel and expenses to continue using Concur, and your financial accounting team in the background and your ERP team could continue using SAP Business ByDesign for the accounting and GL accounting process. Thanks. Sorry, David, please go ahead.
Oh, no. Very, very good. And thank you for that. And with Concur as well, it's one interface, one login, one user with multiple roles and functionalities. So you're not logging into two different systems. You're not going one in for invoice, one in for expense. It's just one login and with your user role. We have funds and grants management integration, validating, a valid combination of a budget check. So that's our proprietary system where it validates that, and it will come back into Concur as a fund reservation too. So then that justifies the reason of taking this pre-trip, because that's travel request typically, or even with expense. So Concur can link up, and it has the ability to link up with many different ERP systems for all your financial systems. And Sandeep, was there any other questions?
Yes. So kind of going back to Concur, is there a limitation to the number of groups you can use in Concur?
No, it's limitless. You can create as many groups that you need. The thing is, you need to understand, what is a group? Why do we create groups? What's the rationale behind it? Could you create 2? Could you create 200? And the answer to that question is yes. The group, anything to do with Concur as it relates to a group, is the differential. Identifying what group sets aside a group of individuals from another. And that could be a workflow condition. If you wanted to segregate this particular group and they can only do an expense report, say for, less than $5,000, that would be a reason or a justification to have a group. Audit rules. When we build audit rules, we can drive or point them to specific groups. So there is no limitation. You can have as many groups that you need. One thing you really, really want to be careful for from a consultative perspective is the more groups that you have, the more maintenance and management that you have. So you want to kind of streamline the idea of groups. And your groups will always attach to the policy. And that policy has the functionality of the workflow. So when Asif and I were sharing screens together, and I was going through that submission to the approval to the processor, that group that I was showing you was linked into a policy. And that policy has all the driving factors of creation to all the way to that workflow. So answer to the question is, There is no limitation on the groups. You can have as many groups. Concur can manage as many groups that you need to have in your system.
Perfect. We've got another question here, kind of relating to, I believe, the integration by design side. But so question is it possible to just post these invoices automatically and reconcile them without having to do too many things in the ERP system? Question
Yes,
for Austin.
absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I think the entire process that we have shown is actually run as a background process on a daily basis. So normally, whenever an expense or invoice gets approved in Concur, it goes into what is called as an FIQ. The background job runs at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock every day generally. Downloads all the invoices, parses them, and posts them automatically, and be done with it. Okay, you would in ERP system, the regular process is that you would do a bank statement reconciliation process at the end of the month every day, where you would just mark these invoices as the payment made, and the entire process is complete. So the entire demo that we had shown on SAP side, that is actually a fully automated process that runs automatically every day.
Perfect. Another question we've got here. So question is, what are the protocols used by this integration to transfer data?
We use the JSON and REST-based services given by Concur. So this is a JSON-based data transfer that comes in, and that there is a JSON parser available as part of this add-on solution that parses the data and transfers it. So you don't have to do file-based transfers or FTP-based transfers. The entire transfer happens electronically. Nothing gets downloaded onto your local machine or your local laptops. You don't need to download an Excel, parse it, and upload it. You don't have to do any of that. Thank you.
Another question we have. So after a report processes through Concur, how long does the integration take?
So that's more of a question for you. Go ahead.
Yeah, normally we do a daily run. So you would have the reports processing on a daily basis on every day. You would keep approving the reports in Concur, and once in a night, once in a day, once in 24 hours, the program runs, downloads everything onto the ERP system, parses it within like 10, 15, 20 minutes, depending upon the volume of the number of reports, and posts it. So overall process, the entire process is just, well, like if you're talking about 25 invoices, that's 20 minutes off time. That's it.
Okay, another question here. So question in the chat here, how much does this add-on cost? Is it a yearly subscription? In this case, we tried integrating with Invoice and had no success due to the PO and receipt imports not working from SAP to Concur, but would be interested in using the invoice posting feature. We've created several iDocs to post the invoices from Concur from the PRAE and have run into a lot of IDOC errors where we have to recreate and resend the invoice. Hoping the solution will allow us to send the invoice back to Concur and correct and resend.
The add-on costs $249 a month, and there is a setup fees, and I think we can discuss that in details. We can take it offline. This detail is available on SAP Store as well. It's an yearly subscription, flat fees. It is not per report, per invoice, or per user. It's a flat fees. We don't actually price this by the volume of the data or number of transactions or the number of users that are using the system. We tried integrating with Invoice. So we can talk through this. Normally what we do is the invoices are created in Concur, and that is downloaded to SAP ByDesign automatically using this process. This is a very fixed process, and we have multiple customers who are live on this at this moment. Actually, we just went live with one customer on invoices earlier this week on Monday. So we can definitely take this offline. Aliyah Newman, can we have your email address, and we'll reach out to you and set up a call and go through the specific problems that you're having. And I see, we definitely don't need iDocs. We definitely do not use iDocs. We do not use any of those other issues. So this is all automated process. Let's set up a call on this and meet again. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Leah, for that question. Also, this is a recorded session, so just wanted to state that price is obviously effective as of November 22nd, 2024, but obviously is subject to change. We have another question. So can approvals be automatic tracking cost objects? Question on the Concur side.
Can approvals be automatic tracking cost objects? Yes. That's the cost object workflow feature where it's based upon the allocation, and that is all pure automation. So if you were to split those charges as it relates to the workflow, let's say you cross-charge those to 5 different projects, 5 different cost centers, whatever you deem necessary, what you're basing your workflow tracking to be. After that submission, and it goes to the cost object approver, that report or that invoice will burst, and it will burst to 5 different cost object approvers automatically. So once it goes through those approvers, so let's say for example, you submit an expense report and you split it to 5 different projects. That report bursts to 5 different project owners, which is housed in a table in Concur as a cost object approver table. What's really important to understand is that if that report was for $500 and that bursts to 5 different cost objects, each cost object owner is only approving $100. They're only approving what they're responsible for that cost object. Once all 5 of those cost object approvers approve it, then that report will automatically, that's the key word, automatically will flow back into the processor, and then you can process the entire report. But cost object approvers are only approving the component or what they're responsible for their budgetary reasons as it bursts to those individual cost objects. Cost objects, sequential and ascend, these type of workflows are very, very common with Invoice product.
Perfect. Thanks, David.
Sure.
So I'm looking in the chat here. It doesn't look like there are any further questions. We are approaching the top of the hour here. So if there are no further questions, we have reached the conclusion of our first webinar session in our overall webinar series. And we'll be back next week with another topic. Look out for a link for that session as well if you're interested. But until then, thank you all for joining, and looking forward to seeing you all on future webinar series as well. Thank you to David and Asif for the presentation, and anybody that has any further questions or needs to reach out to us, you can feel free to contact us by email at any time. And if you want to stay on with us here for any further questions as well, we're going to stick around for a couple of minutes as well. Thanks, everybody.
Yep. And Sandeep, could I add one quick thing before everyone concludes? If you could, if you don't mind, if you can show your PowerPoint, because there is there is a QR code that if you can scan, and it's a survey, and that survey is for any future topics that you may be interested in. And we want to get your feedback on how you like these Concur webinars. So if you could just share your screen just for a quick moment.
Sure.
And so everyone has an opportunity to share that QR code. And I think it was the very, very last last slide.
So this is my last slide. I can't seem to find the QR code.
No?
No, if you've got it, I can stop sharing. But this is my last slide.
Okay, bear with us for one moment, please, because we really, really value your input on this, and it's really important that we get it. So give me a moment. Let me just get it real quickly. And I'll be happy to share it. There you go. So yeah, if you don't mind, if just just scan that QR code and just give us your feedback and any future presentations that you would love to see. We would be we take that information and then we will look at it for future content and Concur webinars.
Perfect. So we appreciate the feedback, everybody, and we're going to stick around for a couple minutes until the top of the hour. Otherwise, feel free to drop off, but we'll be here for a couple minutes for any other additional questions.
Thank you, everybody.